Hunger didn't just sit in her stomach. It clawed. It tore. It screamed. Seraphina huddled in the corner of the damp stone tunnel. The smell down here was vile, old rust and things that had died a long time ago. But to her? It smelled like safety. Above her head, a metal grate let in a single, thin beam of sunlight. Just one beam. A normal person would love the light. They would dance in it. But Seraphina shrank back, pressing her spine against the slimy wall. Air stalled in her throat. If that light touched her skin, it wouldn't feel warm. It would sizzle. It would burn her flesh right off the bone. She looked down at her hands. They shook. Not from fear, but from the void inside her. She hadn't had blood in 3 days. Her vampire half was starving. But her wolf half wanted meat. Raw. Fresh. Bloody. She was a mistake. A walking, breathing error. Nature didn't make things like her. Vampires hated wolves. Wolves hunted vampires. But somehow, her mother and father had broken the rules. And they had left her alone to pay the price. A rat skittered across the wet floor. Its little claws clicked on the stone. Click. 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 Seraphina didn't think. Her body moved on instinct. She lunged, a blur of rags and shadows. Her hand snapped out. Squeak. Silence. She held the warm, struggling body. Her fangs ached, throbbing in her gums, begging to descend. "I'm sorry," she whispered into the dark. She bit down. The taste was wretched. Copper and dirt. But as the hot blood hit her tongue, her hand steadied. The wolf inside her settled, curling up for a nap. It was a dirty meal for a dirty creature. That's what she told herself. She wiped her mouth with the back of her hand, feeling a tear slide down her cheek. She didn't want to be a monster. She just wanted to live. Suddenly, a sound echoed from above. Heavy boots. Marching. Not the erratic stumbling of a drunk human, but the rhythmic, unified stomp of soldiers. Her pulse stalled. She knew that sound. The Wolf Guard. They were sweeping the streets. Usually, they stayed up in the fresh air. But lately, they had been getting closer to the drains. The story said the Alpha King was desperate. They said he was looking for something. Or someone. Seraphina pulled her knees to her chest, squeezing her eyes shut. Please don't come down here. Please. She wasn't scared of dying. Dying would be easy. She was scared of being seen. If they saw the way her eyes reflected the dark like a cat, but her scent was wolf, they wouldn't just kill her. They would study her. They would dismantle her to see how she worked. The grate above her rattled. Dust fell in a slow, sparkling curtain. The beam of sunlight shifted, inching closer to her bare toe. She pulled her foot back, hissing. She was safe for now. The darkness was her ally. But she knew she couldn't hide forever. The hunger would return. It always did. And next time, a rat wouldn't be enough.
The blade was heavy in his hand. It felt colder than the mountain wind whipping around the obsidian citadel. Kaelen looked down at the boy kneeling in the snow. The boy, no, the wolf, was only 18. He should have been strong. He should have been chasing elk through the pines. Instead, his skin was gray. His veins looked black, like poison pumping through them. The rot. My king. The boy wheezed. Blood bubbled on his lips. It hurts. Kaelen's chest restricted. It felt like a vice was crushing his ribs. He was the Alpha. The king of all wolves. He was supposed to protect his pack. But he couldn't fight this. You can't bite a sickness. You can't claw a plague. I know, pup, Kaelen said. His voice was rough, like gravel grinding together. Close your eyes. It will be over soon. The council stood behind him. Watching. waiting. They wore their red robes and their judgmental stares. They didn't care about the boy. They only cared about the law. Purity is survival. That was the law. If a wolf was weak, if a wolf was sick, they were a danger to the pack. They had to be cut out. Like a bruise on an apple. What followed was the hardest thing Kaelen had done all week. And he had done it 3 times already. He swung the sword. A clean arc. A silver flash. Thud. It was done. The boy slumped into the snow. The red blood looked shocking against the white ground. Kaelen turned around, keeping his face impassive. He couldn't let them see him bleed on the inside. An alpha doesn't cry. An alpha acts. Burn the body, Kaelen ordered. Tell the pack it was a rogue vampire attack. Tell them he died a hero. One of the elders, a wolf with eyes like flint, stepped forward. Lying to the pack is dangerous, my king. The truth has a way of surfacing. Kaelen stepped close to the elder, looming over him. A low growl vibrated in his chest, a warning. Panic is more dangerous than lies. If they know the rot is spreading, they will run. And if they run, the vampires will slaughter them. Yet, Kaelen knew the elder was right. He was building a castle on a fault line. Every day, more wolves got sick. Every day, he had to kill the people he loved to keep the secret. He needed a cure. He needed a miracle. But the old scrolls said the only way to stop the rot was absolute purity. Kill the weak. Kill the mixed bloods. Kill anything that wasn't perfect. So, he became a butcher. He walked away from the courtyard, heading toward the balcony. He needed air. He needed to wash the scent of death out of his nose. He gripped the stone railing until the masonry groaned under his strength. Below him, the city sprawled out. Beyond that, the human city with its smog and noise. He closed his eyes and inhaled. He pulled the air into his lungs, testing it. Pine. Snow. Fear. But then, he caught something else. Faint. Barely there. Drifting up from the lowest parts of the city, from the drains and the filth. It smelled like rain, and copper blood, and jasmine? No. It smelled like wolf. But it also smelled cold, like the undead. His wolf stirred inside him, waking from its grief to scratch at his ribs. Mine. The word whispered in his head. Crazy. Impossible. He shook his head. He was losing his mind. The guilt was making him hallucinate. There was nothing down there but rats and waste. Despite that, he couldn't stop staring at the dark smudge of the sewers in the distance. The scent called to him. It hooked into his gut and pulled. Something was down there. Something that didn't belong. And if it was another threat to his pack, he would kill it too. He would kill anything to save his people.
The hunger returned, angrier this time. The rat had been a snack, a tease. Now, her body demanded a meal. Real food. Seraphina waited until the sun went down. The moment the fiery ball dipped below the horizon, the pressure lifted off her skin. The night was her shield. She crept through the tunnels, moving toward the twilight zone. That's what she called the big storm drain that emptied into the river. It was the edge of her world. If she went past the iron bars, she was in the open. She needed to find the butcher's dump. Sometimes, the humans threw out bones with meat still on them. Sometimes, organs. It was repulsive, but it was dinner. She squeezed through a gap in the rusted bars. The cool air hit her face. It felt amazing. She inhaled. Freedom. She moved fast, low to the ground. Silent. A ghost in rags. She found the pile behind the brick building. Her luck was in. A whole bag of scraps. She dug her hands in, finding a heavy bone. She gnawed on it, cracking it open to get the marrow. It tasted like life. Energy flooded her limbs. Her vision sharpened. She could see the veins in a leaf 10 feet away. But she stayed too long. Focused on the food, she didn't notice the sky changing. The moon was bright tonight. Too bright. And dawn was coming earlier than she thought. Without warning, the sky turned gray, then a soft, deadly pink. Panic seized her. No, 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 she gasped. She grabbed a hunk of meat and scrambled back toward the drain. She had to get underground. Now. She climbed the slippery rocks. Her foot lost traction on the slime. She crashed down, her hand raking against a jagged piece of rusted metal sticking out of the concrete. Slish. Pain, hot and sharp, shot up her arm. Ah, she cried out, clutching her hand. Blood welled up. Dark, red blood. It dripped onto the white rock. Drip. 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 She stared at it. Her blood. It didn't look like monster blood. It looked human. The sun peeked over the hills now. The first ray hit the back of her neck like a wasp sting. Move, she screamed at herself. She scrambled up, ignoring the pain, and shoved herself through the bars. She tumbled back into the dark, wet safety of the sewer. She lay there, panting. Her heart slammed against her ribs. She was safe. She was underground. But then she froze. She looked back through the bars. On the white rock, shining in the morning light, was her blood. A bright red smear. It smelled powerful. Sweet and wild. She had left a trail. If any wolf walked past that rock, if any vampire patrol flew over it, they would smell it. They would smell her. She had just signaled the feast. She scrambled deeper into the dark, clutching her bleeding hand to her chest. She had to run. She had to find a new hole. Because of that one drop of blood, her quiet life was over. The hunt was about to begin. And she was the prey.
The scent was a phantom. It led Kaelen away from the clean air of the mountains and down into the guts of the human city. He hated it here. It smelled like smoke and grease. But the trail was absolute. As if pulled by a hook, he followed the copper tang of blood. It was dried now, smeared on a rock near the river, but to his nose, it shrieked. It smelled sweet. Sickly sweet. Like a flower blooming in a graveyard. He stopped at the mouth of a large drainage pipe. Darkness stared back. "You are down there," he whispered. His voice was low. Dangerous. He stepped into the muck. His boots splashed in the filthy water. He didn't care. The hunter inside him was awake. His muscles coiled, ready to snap. He drew his sword. The silver metal gleamed even in the gloom. He walked for an hour. Maybe 2. The tunnels twisted like a maze. But the scent concentrated. Suddenly, he saw her. She was curled up on a pile of rags in a dead-end tunnel. Small. Frail. Her skin was pale, corpse pale. Vampire pale. She was dressed in garbage, shivering in her sleep. Kaelen's lip curled. A vampire. Living right under his nose. A leech feeding on his city. Rage flooded his veins. This thing, this monster, was everything he hated. It was the reason his people were dying. Impurity. Filth. He raised the sword. He aimed for the neck. A clean kill. One swing and the world would be cleaner. Die, he hissed. He swung. The blade whistled. But then, something seized him. In the span of a breath, his arm froze. It didn't just stop. It locked. It felt like an invisible hand had grabbed his wrist and yanked. His sword clattered to the stone floor. Clang. Kaelen stumbled back, gasping. He stared at his own hand. He tried to make a fist, but his fingers rebelled. His pulse thundered in his ears like a war drum. A roar erupted in his head. It wasn't his voice. It was the wolf. the ancient, primal beast that lived in his soul. It was usually quiet. But now it was screaming. Mate. The word vibrated in his teeth. No, Kaelen choked out. He fell to his knees. No, that's a leech. A monster. Mate. The wolf roared again. Protect. Kaelen looked at the girl. She was stirring now, waking from the noise. Her eyes snapped open. And in that moment, gravity shifted. Her eyes weren't red like a vampire. They were gold. Molten, shifting gold. Wolf eyes. She gasped, scrambling back against the wall, baring her teeth at him. Kaelen's head spun. Vampire skin. Wolf eyes. A scent that was both and neither. She was an abomination. A sin against nature. Yet, his body wanted to crawl to her. His wolf wanted to lick the dirt off her face. He couldn't kill her. His biology wouldn't let him. But he couldn't let her go. So, he did the only thing he could. He lunged forward, a blur of motion. Before she could scream, he struck her temple with the hilt of his dagger. She slumped into his arms, soft and heavy. He lifted her up. She weighed nothing. God help me, he whispered into her hair. He turned and walked back toward the light, carrying the very thing that might destroy him.
Pain. That was the first thing. A dull throb in her temple. Seraphina opened her eyes. She expected the damp darkness of the sewer. She expected the smell of rot. Instead, she was blinded. Light. Everywhere. Intense, white, burning light. She screamed, a raw, terrified sound, and scrambled backward. Her spine hit cold stone. She squeezed her eyes shut, shielding her face with her arms. It burns, it burns. She whimpered. She waited for the blistering heat. She waited for her skin to bubble and peel like it did when she was a child. But the pain didn't come. Just warmth. Slowly, carefully, she peeked through her fingers. She wasn't outside. She was in a room. A cell. It was made of black stone, but there was a window high up. A single bar of sunlight cut across the floor like a blade. She was in the shadow of the wall. Safe. For now. Panic rose in her throat like bile. Where was she? The air smelled thin here. Crisp. It smelled like snow and pine. She was high up. The mountains. The citadel. Dread pooled in her stomach. She had been taken by the wolves. Without thinking, she checked her body. She was still in her rags. No chains, yet. But the door was heavy iron. Locked. She was a prisoner in the house of the enemy. She huddled in the darkest corner, knees to her chest. Her stomach gave a loud, hollow growl. She hadn't eaten properly in days. The hunger made the room spin. Suddenly, the lock on the door clicked. Clack. Clack. Seraphina stiffened. She bared her teeth, not her human teeth, but her fangs. They slid down, sharp and ready. The door swung open. A man filled the doorway. He was massive. Broad shoulders blocked out the light from the hall. He had dark hair and a scar running down his jaw. He radiated power. It rolled off him, making the air feel heavy. It was him. The man from the sewer. The Alpha. Seraphina pressed herself harder against the stone. She tried to make herself invisible. He didn't speak. He just stared. His eyes were dark, stormy. He looked at her with hate, but also with something else. Hunger? Confusion? He stepped into the room. As he moved, the sunlight from the window hit his armor. It flashed. Seraphina flinched, hissing like a cat. Stay back. He stopped. He looked at the sunlight, then at her. He saw her fear. You fear the sun, he said. His voice was deep, scraping against the stone walls. Like a leech. I am not a leech, she spat. The words tasted bitter. Then what are you? He asked. He took another step. Stay away. Before she could stop it, a growl ripped from her chest. It wasn't a vampire hiss this time. It was a low, guttural rumble. A wolf warning. The man froze. His eyes widened. He heard it. He recognized it. What followed was a long, terrible silence. He stared at her as if she was a cipher he couldn't crack. Then, he reached behind him. He pulled something from a bag. A chunk of raw meat. Red. Bloody. He tossed it onto the floor, halfway between them. Eat, he ordered. Seraphina stared at the meat. Her mouth watered. Her stomach cramped. She looked at him. He wasn't attacking. He was feeding her. She didn't know what scared her more, his sword, or the way he was looking at her now. Like she belonged to him.
She ate like a wild thing. She didn't use her hands. She snatched the meat with her teeth and tore into it. Kaelen leaned against the heavy iron door, arms crossed. He watched her. He couldn't look away. It was disgusting. It was primal. It was beautiful. He shook his head, trying to clear the fog in his brain. The bond, this made sickness, was twisting his thoughts. He should see a monster eating raw flesh. Instead, he saw a survivor. As the silence stretched, he steadied her. She was small, but there was muscle under those rags. When she chewed, he saw the flash of fangs. Vampire fangs. But when she swallowed, she let out a contented sigh that was purely canine. She was a contradiction. A paradox made of flesh and blood. "What is your name?" he asked. She froze. She licked a drop of blood from her lip. Her golden eyes flicked to him, wary. "Seraphina," she whispered. Her voice was scratchy and used. "Seraphina," he repeated. The name tasted strange on his tongue. Soft. Too soft for a creature like this. "Do you know where you are, Seraphina?" "The citadel," she said. She glanced at the beam of sunlight on the floor and shuddered. "The Wolf King's slaughterhouse." Kaelen flinched. "Is that what they called his home? A slaughterhouse?" "You are safe here," he said. The lie slipped out before he could stop it. She laughed. It was a dry, brittle sound. "Safe? You are the Alpha Kaelen. You kill things like me. That is your law. Purity is survival. Isn't that what you preach?" She knew him. She knew his laws. "I should kill you," he admitted. He stepped closer. The pull between them intensified. It felt like a magnet in his chest, dragging him toward her. "The council would demand your head on a spike. You are a mixture. A pollution." "Then do it," she challenged. She stood up. She was shaking, but she held her chin high. "End it." She stepped toward him. She stepped right into the edge of the sunlight. Hiss. Smoke curled from her shoulder. Her skin turned red instantly. "Ah!" She jumped back, clutching her arm. Without thinking, Kaelen moved. He crossed the room in a single stride. He grabbed her arm, pulling her deep into the shadows. "Careful," he barked. He looked at the burn. It was already healing. The skin was knitting together right before his eyes. Fast. Faster than a wolf. Faster than a vampire. He stared at her. He touched her skin. It was cool, but under his fingertips, he felt a spark. A static charge that shot straight to his heart. Her breath caught. She looked up at him, eyes wide. They were close. Too close. He could smell the blood on her breath. He could feel the heat radiating from her core. "Why?" she whispered. "Why did you save me?" Kaelen looked at the burn, then at her lips. He wanted to kiss her. He wanted to strangle her. I don't know, he lied. He let her go abruptly. He stepped back, putting distance between them. The cold air rushed back in. You will stay here, he commanded. His voice was hard again. The king was back. You will not leave this room. If the council sees you, I cannot stop them. He turned to the door. Wait, she said. He paused, hand on the latch. Why does my blood sing when you are near? She asked. Her voice trembled. Kaelen closed his eyes. He felt it too. The song. The harmony. Because fate has a cruel sense of humor, he muttered. He walked out. Clang. He locked the door. He leaned his forehead against the cold wood of the hallway. His pulse raced. He had just broken his own law. He was harboring a monster. And God help him, he was already planning how to keep her.
The lock engaged. Clack. Seraphina was alone again. But this time, the silence had weight. The air in the room felt pressurized, like the heavy static before a lightning strike. She looked down at her arm. Just moments ago, the sun had touched her skin. It should have blistered. It should have turned into a weeping, raw wound. But then, she gasped. The skin was smooth. Pale. Unmarked. How? She whispered, tracing the spot with a finger. Usually, her vampire blood healed slowly. But since he touched her, since the alpha grabbed her arm, her physiology had shifted. She paced the small room. 3 steps left. Turn. 3 steps right. Turn. She stayed deep in the shadows, eyeing the square of sunlight on the floor like it was a bear trap. She needed to get out. She needed to return to her sewer. But her legs felt heavy. Anchored to this place. Anchored to him. Eventually, footsteps approached the door. Not the heavy, confident boots of the king. These were lighter. Shuffling. Voices drifted through the thick wood. Another one died this morning, a man's voice muttered. He sounded rattled. The beta's son. Coughed up his lungs right in the mess hall. Quiet, another voice hissed. The king said it was a vampire poison. The king is lying, the first voice argued. It's the rot. It's eating us alive. My mate, she's starting to show the gray veins. If the council finds out, they'll burn her. Seraphina pressed her ear against the cold stone. The rot? She had heard whispers of it in the Undercity. A plague that turned wolves into husks. But she thought it was a myth to scare pups. It was real. And it was here. She sank to the floor. The king. Kaelen. He wasn't just hunting her because he hated hybrids. He was hunting because he was desperate. His pack was dying. Because of that fear, he was volatile. A scared wolf bites harder than a mad one. She looked at her hands. Her sinful blood. Why did fate bring her here? To a dying castle? To a king who looked at her like a starving man looks at a feast? She didn't have the answers. All she had was a healed arm and a coil of dread in her stomach. She closed her eyes, listening to the castle breathe. Somewhere in this stone fortress, the king was fighting a war he couldn't win. And somehow, she was the ammunition.
The council chamber smelled like old parchment and judgment. 12 wolves sat in a semicircle. The oldest. The wisest. The cruelest. Kaelen stood in the center. He kept his chin high. He was the alpha. He didn't bow. But his pulse betrayed him, thudding against his sternum. You smell different, my king, High Priestess Mara said. She was a shriveled woman with eyes like polished flint. She leaned forward, testing the air. Her nose wrinkled. You smell of the sewers, she accused. And something else. Something sweet. Something wrong. Kaelen didn't flinch. Wolves smelled fear. If he sweated, if his heart rate spiked, they would know. I have been hunting, Kaelen lied. His voice was steady. I tracked a vampire spy to the tunnels. I brought it back for interrogation. A prisoner? Mara asked. Her eyes narrowed. Why not kill it? The law says. I know the law. Kaelen roared. The sound slammed off the stone walls. The council flinched. Good. Fear kept them in line. The vampire knows something, Kaelen said, lowering his voice to a low rumble. It knows about our situation. He didn't say the word right. He didn't have to. The tension in the room spiked. The scent of anxiety wafted off the elders like sour sweat. Mara stood up. She walked toward him, stalking him like a vulture waiting for a carcass to drop. Purity is our shield, she chanted. If we allow filth into our home, the ancestors will punish us. This prisoner, let me see it. Let me cleanse it. Kaelen's hands clenched at his sides. No, he said. It is my prisoner. My kill. Mara stopped in front of him. She was small, but she wielded the weapon of religion. Be careful, Kaelen, she whispered. The pack is restless. They are scared. If they think their king is keeping secrets, they might look for a new alpha. It was a threat. A clear, sharp blade at his throat. Kaelen leaned down. He put his face inches from hers. Let them look, he snarled. And I will bury them. He turned on his heel and stormed out. He walked fast. He needed to get away from them. He needed to get back to the East Tower. To her. He told himself it was to guard the prisoner. To protect the secret. Yet, deep down, he knew the truth. He needed to smell that scent again. The mix of wolf and leech. The scent that silenced the roaring beast in his chest. He was walking a blade's edge over a pit. One slip, and he would fall. But for the first time, he didn't want to follow the rules. He wanted to find out why the abomination woke up senses he thought were dead.
The door handle turned. Seraphina scrambled up from the floor. She expected Kaelen. She expected the king and his violence. Instead, a guard slipped in. He wasn't the alpha. He was younger, with a cruel set to his mouth. He locked the door behind him. Click. So, the guard said, looking her up and down. This is the pet the king is hiding. Seraphina backed away. Get out. The guard laughed. Or what? You'll bite me? I know what you are. A leech. A tick. You're weak. He stepped closer. He smelled like stale beer and lust. The king is busy, he sneered. I thought I'd come have a little fun. Show you what a real wolf feels like. He lunged. Without warning, he grabbed her arm. His grip was bruising. A normal woman would have screamed. A vampire would have used speed to snap his neck. But Seraphina? Her body moved on instinct. Not vampire instinct. Wolf instinct. She didn't pull away. She stepped into him. She dropped her weight, slammed her shoulder into his solar plexus, and swept his leg. Thud. The guard hit the stone floor hard. Oxygen vacated his lungs. Before he could move, Seraphina was on top of him. Her hand, fingers curled like claws, locked around his throat. She didn't squeeze with super strength. She found the pressure point. The carotids. The spot every wolf knows. The guard gagged. He clawed at her arm, but she held firm. She bared her teeth. A low, vibrating growl rumbled in her chest. Do not touch me, she snarled. She could kill him. It would be easy. Crush the windpipe. End it. The door banged open. Seraphina froze. Kaelen stood there. He looked at the guard on the floor. Then he looked at Seraphina. She expected him to be angry. She expected him to kill her for touching his soldier. But then, she saw his face. He wasn't looking at a monster. He was looking at a warrior. He saw her form. The pin. The throat lock. It was pure wolf combat. The tension snapped. Kaelen stepped into the room. He didn't look at her. He looked at the guard. "Get out," Kaelen said. His voice was quiet. Deadly. Seraphina let go. She scrambled back to her corner, breathing hard. The guard scrambled up, coughing. "My king, she attacked me. She's feral." "You entered my quarters without permission," Kaelen said. "If she hadn't stopped you, I would have ripped your head off myself." The guard went pale. He ran. The door slammed shut. Seraphina stood there, adrenaline flooding her system. She waited for Kaelen to yell. To punish her. Instead, he looked at her with those intense, golden brown eyes. "You fight like a wolf," he said. It wasn't an insult. It sounded almost like recognition. "I am what I am," she whispered. "Yes," Kaelen murmured. He took a step closer. The air between them spiked in temperature. "You are." He didn't see a leech anymore. She could feel the shift. He saw a mate. And that terrified her more than the guard ever could.
The smell hit him before he opened the nursery door. Not milk. Not powder. Spoiled meat. Sweet. Sickly. Wrong. Kaelen froze, hand hovering over the brass handle. He prayed to the ancestors. He begged the moon. Please. Not him. Take anyone but him. He pushed the door open. The room was dim. A single candle flickered on the table, casting long, erratic shadows. In the small crib, a tiny body twisted. Jace. His nephew. The future of the pack. Only 4 years old. "Uncle." Jace whimpered. His voice was thin, like dry paper. Kaelen walked to the crib. His boots felt filled with lead. He looked down. The horror nearly buckled his knees. Jace's skin was gray. Dark, black veins spiderwebbed up his neck, pulsing with a slow, toxic rhythm. The rot. It had breached the inner sanctum. It had come for the innocent. "I'm here, pup," Kaelen whispered, reaching out to touch the boy's forehead. Burning hot. To make things worse, the pack healer stepped out of the shadows. She looked defeated. Shoulders slumped. "The herbs aren't working, my king," she said softly. "The fever is too high. He won't last the night." Kaelen stared at her. "Do something," he snarled. "He is a child." "I cannot fight a curse," she wept. Kaelen turned back to the crib. He gripped the wooden railing until it splintered. Crack. He was the king. He had armies. Gold. Power. But right now? He was useless. He was watching his bloodline die, and he couldn't do a thing about it. He felt like a fraud. He preached purity. He killed the sick to save the healthy. But now that it was Jace, could he do it? Could he take his sword and end the boy's suffering? No. He turned and walked out. He couldn't breathe in there. The air was too thick. He needed to escape. He needed to find something real. Something alive. Without thinking, his feet carried him down the hall. Down the winding stone stairs. Toward the east tower. He didn't know why he went to her. He should hate her. She was a hybrid. A mistake. Yet, as he approached her door, the constriction in his chest loosened. Her scent drifted through the crack. Not sickness. Rain and wild jasmine. He stopped at her door, leaning his forehead against the wood. He was so tired. "I'm failing," he whispered to the closed door. "I'm losing them all." He was so distracted, so broken, that he made a mistake. A rookie error. He didn't check the lock. He turned and walked away, leaving the heavy iron door unlatched. He needed whiskey to drown the image of Jace's gray skin. But behind him, the latch didn't click. The door stood open, just a crack. A sliver of darkness in a hallway of light. And inside, the prisoner was listening.
Seraphina stood by the door. She hadn't moved for an hour. She had heard his footsteps. She had heard his voice. I'm failing. I'm losing them all. The pain in his voice was raw. It wasn't the voice of a monster. It was the voice of a man drowning. She waited until his footsteps faded. Then, she pushed. Creak. The door swung open. Her pulse jumped. He had left it unlocked. It was a trap. It had to be. Still, she stepped out. The hallway was empty. She should run. She should find a window, break it, and jump. She could survive the fall. Return to the sewer. But then, a sound drifted down the hall. A cry. Small. Weak. Mama. Seraphina froze. Her ears twitched. A pup. A child. And it sounded like it was dying. Her instincts surged. She was a predator, yes, but wolves protected the young. It was the primary law. As if pulled by a wire, she followed the sound. Moving like smoke, silent and fast. She passed sleeping guards. She slipped into the nursery. The room smelled terrible. It smelled like the rot. She crept to the crib. The little boy was twisting in the sheets. Veins black. Gasping for air. Oh, little one, she whispered. She reached out. She wanted to comfort him. To cool his fever. But as she leaned over, her arm brushed against a sharp metal sconce on the wall. Slish. Ah, she hissed. A cut opened on her forearm. Not deep, but it bled. A single, heavy drop of dark crimson blood welled up. It fell. Plip. It landed right on the boy's lips. Seraphina gasped, reaching for a cloth to wipe it away. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But then, she stopped. She watched, eyes wide. The boy swallowed the drop. In a single heartbeat, the atmosphere changed. Where the blood touched his lips, color returned. Pink. Healthy. The black veins on his neck, they didn't just stop. They retreated. Ink washing away. The gray skin turned flush. His breathing eased. In. Out. In. Out. Seraphina stared at her hand. She stared at the cut. What? She breathed. She had spent her whole life believing she was poison. Everyone told her she was a sin. Filth. But this? This was a miracle. Her blood wasn't sickness. It was the cure. The door handle turned behind her. Seraphina spun around, clutching her bleeding arm. Kaelen stood in the doorway. He held a bottle. His eyes went from her, to the crib, to the blood on her arm. What did you do? He roared. He dropped the bottle. Crash. Glass shattered. He lunged at her. He thought she was hurting the boy. Killing him. No, she screamed. Look. Just look.
Panic was a cold blade. She was in the nursery. The monster was with Jace. And there was blood. Get away from him. Kaelen shouted. He grabbed her shoulders and threw her back. She hit the wall hard. Thud. He spun to the crib, expecting a corpse. Expecting Jace's throat torn out. Instead, he saw a sleeping boy. Jace breathed deeply. His skin was pink. The black webs were gone. The smell of rot was gone. Kaelen blinked, rubbing his eyes. Impossible. 5 minutes ago, the boy was dying. Now? He looked like he was just napping. How? Kaelen whispered. He turned slowly to look at Seraphina. She was pressed against the wall, holding her arm. Blood dripped from a cut, staining her rags. My blood, she said. Her voice shook. It fell on him. I didn't mean to. But he drank it. And the sickness just vanished. Kaelen looked at the drop of blood on the floor. It shined like a ruby. His mind raced. The legend said hybrids were an abomination. Mixing the bloodlines caused madness. But the legends were written by scared old men. The silence was loud. The gears in his head turned, grinding against centuries of tradition. If her blood could cure the rot, then she wasn't a mistake. She was the answer. She was the only thing standing between his pack and extinction. He walked toward her. She flinched. She expected a blow. Kaelen, she whispered. He reached out, taking her bleeding arm. His touch was gentle this time. Reverent. He brought her arm up, looking at the wound. You are the cure, he said. His voice broke. I thought I was a sin, she cried. Tears spilled down her dirty cheeks. I thought I was poison. No, Kaelen said. He looked into her golden eyes. We were wrong. All of us. As the truth unraveled, the barrier between them dissolved. He didn't see a prisoner. He didn't see a political problem. He saw a savior. And his wolf? His wolf was purring so loud it vibrated in his chest. See? I told you. Mate. Come with me, Kaelen said. To the dungeon, she asked. No, he growled. To my room. You aren't going back to a cell. Not ever. He picked her up. She was light, but solid against him. Why? She asked, resting her head on his shoulder. Because, Kaelen said, stepping over the broken glass, you just saved my family. And now, I'm going to save you. He walked out of the nursery, carrying the most dangerous secret in the world. The war was coming. The council would want her dead. The vampires would want her back. But let them come. He was the Alpha King. And he had just found his queen. The fire in the hearth snapped. Kaelen sat on the edge of his massive bed. The room smelled of pine and expensive whiskey. But right now, it smelled like her. Jasmine and rain. Seraphina sat next to him. She looked small against the fur blankets. She wasn't wearing rags anymore. She wore one of his shirts. It draped over her, emphasizing her slight frame. But she wasn't fragile. Kaelen knew that now. Does it hurt? He asked. His voice was low. Rough. He held her arm gently. The cut from the nursery was already knitting together. Pink and new. No, she whispered. She didn't pull away. It itches. Kaelen looked at the small glass vial on the nightstand. It was empty. He needed to fill it. He needed her blood to give to the healer. It was the only way to save the other sick wolves. Yet, asking for it felt wrong. It felt like he was using her. Like the vampires used her. I need more, he admitted. The words tasted like ash. For the pack. For the cure. Seraphina looked at the vial. Then she looked at him. Her golden eyes searched his face. She was looking for a lie. She was looking for the monster he used to be. I will give it, she said. But then, she leaned in. She put her hand on his chest, right over his heart. Her palm was cool. But not for the king, she said firmly. I give it for the man. For my mate. The word landed with physical weight. Mate. She said it. She accepted it. Kaelen leaned in. The air between them thickened. Heavy. Charged. I am not a king tonight, he growled. I am yours. He brought her wrist to his mouth. He didn't use a knife this time. He used his teeth. Gently. He grazed her skin with his fangs. She gasped. Her breath hitched. Her scent spiked, sweet and heady. Do it, she breathed. He bit down. Precision. A drop of crimson welled up. He caught it in the vial. But then, he licked the wound. The taste was explosive. It tasted like power. It tasted like liquid fire. The bond solidified. A visceral tether connecting his pulse to hers. He could feel her heartbeat. Thump thump. He could feel her hope. He pulled back, his pupils blown wide. You are the bridge, he whispered. Wolf and vampire. You are the future. Seraphina smiled. It was the first real smile he had ever seen on her. It illuminated the room. We are the future, she corrected. Kaelen set the vial down. He didn't care about the cure right now. He only cared about her. He pulled her into his lap. She fit perfectly. I will burn the world before I let them hurt you again, he promised. And he meant it. He would tear the kingdom down for her.
The peace didn't last. It never did. Seraphina was alone in the king's room. Kaelen had gone to take the vial to the healers. He promised to be back in 10 minutes. 10 minutes. Enough time for everything to collapse. She was standing by the window, watching the moon. It was full. A cold, pale iris staring down at the mountain. Suddenly, a voice whispered in her ear. Come home, little abomination. Seraphina spun around. Who's there? The room was empty. The fire was dying. We smell you, the voice hissed. It was inside her head. Cold and slimy. The Wolf King has you, but you belong to the shadows. Vampires. The lords. They were projecting their thoughts. They were close. The glass window shattered. Crash. Shards flew everywhere. Freezing wind rushed in. 3 figures dropped from the ceiling. They moved too fast to be human. Dressed in black leather. Eyes red. Burning red. Assassins. Grab her, one hissed. Seraphina didn't scream. She didn't freeze. Her fear calcified into fury. No, she shouted. 2 of them lunged. Claws out. They wanted to drag her back to the dark. They wanted to hook her up to machines and drain her dry. Her body moved on instinct. She threw her hands up. Usually, a vampire uses darkness. But Seraphina? She was different. Her blood was a battery. It soaked up the sun all day. And now? It wanted out. In a split second, heat exploded from her skin. It wasn't fire. It was light. Pure, concentrated ultraviolet. Boom. A shockwave of white light blasted from her body. It flooded the room, blinding and absolute. Argh, the vampires screamed. The light hit them. Their skin sizzled. Smoke rose from their faces. They stumbled back, covering their eyes. They were creatures of the night. This light was their executioner. What is she? One screamed, clawing at his burning eyes. Seraphina stood in the center of the room. She was glowing. Literally glowing. Her veins shone like gold under her skin. I am the sun, she growled. But the noise, the explosion, it attracted attention. The door burst open. It wasn't Kaelen. It was the Wolf Council. High Priestess Mara. And 20 armed guards. They stopped dead. They stared at the vampires writhing on the floor. Then they stared at Seraphina, who was radiating like a dying star. Mara pointed a shaking finger at her. Witchcraft, she shrieked. She is summoning demons. She is burning us. Seraphina's light faded. She stumbled. The release drained her. She was empty. No, she gasped. I was protecting. Seize her. Mara ordered. Kill the witch. Seraphina looked for a way out. But the window was blocked by vampires. The door was blocked by wolves. She was trapped between the monsters and the mob.
The explosion shook the floorboards. Kaelen dropped the empty vial. Seraphina, he roared. He ran. He didn't care who saw him. He sprinted down the hall, shoving guards aside. Move, he bellowed. He reached his room. The door was smashed open. The scene inside froze him. Seraphina was on her knees. 2 guards held her arms. She looked exhausted. Pale. But there was smoke in the room, vampire smoke. High Priestess Mara stood over her, holding a silver dagger. The abomination brought vampires into the citadel. Mara yelled. She looked at the crowd of wolves gathering in the hall. She signaled them. She is a traitor. Liar. Kaelen shouted. He charged into the room. He threw 1 guard into the wall. Crunch. He punched another in the jaw. He stood in front of Seraphina. He bared his teeth. A deep rumble tore from his throat. Touch her and you die, he snarled. Mara didn't back down. She looked at the wolves behind Kaelen. See, she cried. The king protects the witch. He chooses the monster over his own pack. He is bewitched. The wolves murmured. They looked at Kaelen with fear. They looked at Seraphina with hate. She is the cure. Kaelen pleaded. She saved Jace. She poisoned Jace. Mara lied. It is a trick. A dark magic trick. The captain of the guard stepped forward. Kaelen's best friend. His beta. Stand down, Kaelen, the captain said sadly. You aren't yourself. I am the Alpha. Kaelen roared. I command you. Not anymore, Mara said coldly. The council strips you of your rank. You are compromised. She snapped her fingers. Take him. 10 guards rushed him. Kaelen fought. He was a blur of violence. He broke bones. He drew blood. But the numbers overwhelmed him. They piled on top, pinning him to the stone. They chained his hands with silver cuffs. The metal seared his skin. No! Seraphina screamed. Leave him alone. Kaelen lifted his head. Blood obscured his vision. He watched as they dragged Seraphina away. I will find you, he shouted. His voice raw. I will come for you. She looked back at him. Her eyes were filled with tears. I know, she whispered. Then she was gone. Kaelen slumped against the floor. Chained. Bleeding. He had lost his crown. But that didn't matter. What mattered was that they had taken his mate. And for that, he would kill them all. Darkness didn't just fill the room. It had a mass. It pressed against Kaelen's chest like a slab of granite. He hung from the wall, wrists raw under the silver chains. Silver. The one metal that seared a wolf's skin like acid. Sizzle. Burn. Sizzle. The pain was constant. A high-pitched frequency in his brain. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the silence. For the last few hours, his head had been full of her. He could feel Seraphina's fear. He could hear her heartbeat like a drum in his own ears. Thump thump. Thump thump. Now? Nothing. The bond was dead. A severed wire. Seraphina, he croaked into the blackness. No answer. Just a drip of water. Plip. Panic tightened his throat. Had they killed her? Was she gone? If she was dead, he would know. He would feel his soul rip in half. Because of that silence, he felt true fear for the first time in centuries. He wasn't the Alpha King down here. He was just a man who had failed. The heavy iron door creaked open. Groan. Light spilled in, stinging his eyes. High Priestess Mara stepped into the cell. She held a torch. The flames reflected in her cold, glassy eyes. She looked at him with pity. Calculated pity. "Look at you," she whispered. "The great king. Chained like a dog." Kaelen pulled on the chains. The silver bit into his bone. He growled. "Low. Dangerous." "Where is she?" he snarled. Mara sighed. She adjusted her red robes. "The witch? She is being prepared." "Prepared for what?" "For the cleansing," Mara said simply. "At dawn, we burn the impurity. It is the only way to stop the plague she brought." "She didn't bring it," Kaelen shouted. He lunged forward, but the chains jerked him back. Clang. "She cured Jace. I saw it." Mara stepped closer. She lowered her voice. "Jace is dead, Kaelen." The air left the room. Kaelen froze. "What?" "The boy died an hour ago," Mara lied. Her voice was smooth like oil. "Her cure was poison. It gave him a moment of energy, yes. But then, his heart failed. Time stalled." Kaelen stared at her. "Jace. Dead? Because he let Seraphina touch him? Because he trusted the bond?" "No," he whispered. "You're lying." "Am I?" Mara asked. She turned to leave. "You killed your nephew, Kaelen. You let a monster into the nursery. And at dawn, you will watch her burn for it." She walked out. The door slammed. Boom. Kaelen slumped against the wall. The fight drained out of him. If Jace was dead, then he was wrong. The bond was wrong. His wolf howled in grief inside his head. A long, mournful sound. Maybe he wasn't the hero of this story. Maybe he was the villain who let the darkness in. And as the silence roared in his ears, he finally broke. He hung his head and wept.
The chains were cold. So cold they felt hot. Seraphina knelt on the stone floor of the high tower. They had stripped her of Kaelen's shirt. She was back in rags. Back to being nothing. Outside the window, the sky was turning a dark, bruised purple. The sun was gone. The moon was hiding. She was waiting to die. She knew what came next. The stake. The fire. The screaming. But then, the door opened. It wasn't a guard. It was an elder. One of the wolves who sat on the council. He had gray fur on his face and eyes that looked like flint. He didn't come in to hurt her. He stood by the door, keeping his distance. "Does it hurt?" he asked. Seraphina looked up. "Does what hurt?" "Knowing he traded you," the elder said. Seraphina frowned. "What?" The elder smirked. A cruel, thin smile. "The Alpha. Kaelen. We gave him a choice. Give up the girl and keep his crown, or die with her." Seraphina's pulse stuttered. Thump. "He would never," she whispered. "He fought for me." "He fought for his pride," the elder corrected. "But when the chains went on? When he realized he would lose his kingdom? He broke." The elder chuckled. It sounded like dry leaves crunching. "He signed the order himself," the elder lied. "He said you were a mistake. A momentary lapse in judgment. He wants you gone so the pack will forgive him." Seraphina felt the blood leave her face. Could it be true? She remembered his eyes in the nursery. "You are the cure." But she also remembered the way he looked at his crown. He was a king. Kings made hard choices. Kings sacrificed pawns to save the game. Was she just a pawn? "No," she said. But her voice trembled. "Believe what you want," the elder said. But at dawn, he will be standing on the balcony. And he won't be looking at you with love. He will be lighting the match. He turned and left. Seraphina was alone again. Doubt crept in. A cold worm in her gut. She had spent her whole life being rejected. Her parents left her. The vampires hunted her. The wolves hated her. Why would Kaelen be different? Maybe she was just a mistake. A sin. Something to be used and discarded. She looked at her wrists. The veins were blue. Human-looking. But inside was the blood that everyone wanted. Her chest ached. It hurt more than the chains. If he had betrayed her, then she truly had nothing. She curled into a ball on the cold stone. She didn't cry. She was too empty for tears. She just stared at the window, watching the night turn into the day that would kill her. The darkest hour is right before the dawn. That's what people said. But they were wrong. The darkest hour was right now. Seraphina watched the sky. It was shifting from black to gray. The birds were starting to sing. They didn't know a girl was about to burn. They didn't care. She stopped pulling on the chains. She stopped fighting. Her mind was quiet. Eerily quiet. She thought about her life. Hiding in sewers. Eating rats. Running from the sun. She had spent 18 years apologizing for existing. I am sorry I am a hybrid. I am sorry I am hungry. I am sorry I take up space. She looked at her hand. In the dim light, she could see a faint glow under her skin. The residue of the power she used against the vampires. I am the sun, she had said. Why did she say that? She closed her eyes. She took a deep breath. In. Out. She wasn't a wolf. Wolves were creatures of the earth. They ran in packs. They needed ground. She wasn't a vampire. Vampires were dead. They were cold. They feared the light. She was something else. She remembered the feeling of the sun on her skin in Kaelen's room. It hadn't burned her because she was evil. It burned her because she was a vessel. A battery that was too full. She didn't need to hide from the light. She needed to drink it. In that moment, a shift happened. It wasn't a loud noise. It was a quiet click in her soul. She stopped waiting for Kaelen to save her. She stopped waiting for the council to forgive her. She stood up. The chains rattled. Clink. She walked to the window. The glass was gone. The wind hit her face. The first sliver of the sun peeked over the mountain peaks. A line of fire. Usually, she would flinch. She would hide. But not today. I am not a mistake, she whispered to the wind. Her voice was steady. Strong. I am the evolution. She stepped into the light. It hit her skin. Sizzle. Pain flared. Hot and sharp. Her instinct screamed run. But she didn't run. She stood there. She let it burn. She opened her arms to it. Come on, she thought. Take me. And as the pain turned into power, as her blood began to boil not with death but with energy, she smiled. They wanted to burn her? Fine. She would show them what real fire looked like. The door opened behind her. Guards marched in. It's time, one grunted. Seraphina turned around. Her eyes were glowing. Not reflected light. Inner light. Yes, she said. It is. She didn't look like a prisoner anymore. She looked like a queen walking to her coronation.
Despair was suffocating. Kaelen sat in the dark, head low. The silver chains had burned his wrists to the bone, but he barely registered it. The pain in his chest was absolute. Jace was dead. Seraphina was dead. Or she would be, soon. He had failed. He wasn't an alpha. He was a ruin. Plip. Plip. The water dripped. But then, a sound. Not water. Scritch. Scratch. Metal on metal at the heavy iron door. Kaelen didn't look up. Let them come. Let them end it. Uncle Kaelen? The voice was tiny. A phantom. Kaelen's head snapped up. His neck cracked. Jace? The door swung open a crack. A small face peered in. It wasn't gray or rotting. It was pink. Healthy. Alive. Jace squeezed through the gap, dragging a ring of keys. He looked scared, but he was breathing. Jace. Kaelen breathed. Oxygen rushed back into his lungs. You're alive. Mama was crying, Jace whispered, rushing to the bars. She said the bad lady took you. She said I had to sleep, but I wanted to help. Kaelen stared at the boy. His pulse pounded in his ears. Mara lied. She lied about the boy to break him. She lied to make him surrender. The grief in his chest evaporated. It was replaced by fire. Hot, white, blinding rage. They had tricked him. They had stolen his crown. They were about to murder his mate for a crime she didn't commit. Give me the keys, pup, Kaelen said. His voice was a low rumble. A tectonic shift. Jace slid the keys through the bars. Kaelen's hands shook as he grabbed them. He unlocked the cuffs. Click. The silver fell away. His skin was raw, blistered. But he flexed his hands. He felt the power returning. The wolf was awake. And it was furious. He kicked the cell door. Bang. It flew open, slamming against the stone wall. He picked Jace up, hugging him hard, and hailing the milk and soap scent of the boy. The scent of life. Go back to your mother, Kaelen ordered gently. Run. Hide. Where are you going? Jace asked. Kaelen stood up. He looked toward the stairs. Toward the light. I'm going to burn this whole castle down, he snarled. Because of that lie, they had unleashed a monster. They wanted a beast? Fine. He would show them why he was the king. He started to run. He didn't need a sword. He had his claws. He had his teeth. And he had a mate to save.
The courtyard was silent. Hundreds of wolves stood in a circle. Watching. Seraphina walked to the center. Her head was high. She didn't look at the ground. She looked at the sky. In the center of the yard, a wooden stake stood waiting. Piles of dry wood stacked around it. A mouth waiting to swallow her. Bind her. High Priestess Mara shouted. 2 guards grabbed her arms. They dragged her to the wood. They tied her with iron chains. The metal was cold against her skin. She didn't fight. She didn't scream. As the wind shifted, she smelled the oil they had poured on the wood. Sharp. Chemical. This creature, Mara yelled to the crowd, is a poison. She bewitched your king. She brought the plague. Liar, a voice shouted from the back. But it was drowned out by the murmurs of the crowd. Seraphina looked at the horizon. The sun was coming. A golden rim pushed over the jagged peaks. Usually, this was the moment she would shake. This was the moment she would beg for the dark. But then, she remembered the nursery. She remembered the heel. I am not poison. Light the fire. Mara commanded. A guard stepped forward with a torch. He threw it onto the oil-soaked wood. Whoosh. Orange flames roared to life, licking at her feet. The heat was intense. It snapped and popped. The crowd gasped. They waited for the scream. But Seraphina didn't scream. In the span of a breath, the sun crested the mountain. The full, blinding light of day hit the courtyard. It hit her face. At the same time, the fire rose around her legs. Heat from below. Light from above. Her body moved on instinct. She didn't pull away. She inhaled. In. She pulled the fire into her. She pulled the sunlight into her. Her vampire blood, usually so cold, began to boil. But not with pain. With energy. It was a reaction. Like striking a match in a room full of gas. Boom. Her skin began to glow. Brighter than the fire. Brighter than the torch. The chains on her wrists didn't melt. They shattered. Ping. She stepped forward. The fire parted around her like water. She wasn't burning. She was shining. The guards stumbled back, shielding their eyes. "What is she?" someone screamed. Seraphina lifted her hands. Rays of pure, white light shot from her fingertips. "I am the dawn," she whispered. Her voice echoed like a bell. She looked at Mara. The priestess looked terrified. "You wanted fire?" Seraphina asked. Her eyes were two suns. "Here." She didn't attack. She simply let go. She let the power flood out. A wave of light washed over the courtyard. It didn't burn the wolves. It washed over them like a warm breeze. And where the light touched, fear vanished. The wolves stopped growling. They stared at her in awe. She wasn't a monster. She was a miracle.
Kaelen burst through the heavy oak doors of the courtyard. Panting. Blood from the guards he had fought dripped from his knuckles. "Stop," he roared. He expected to see a charred body. He expected to smell burning flesh. Instead, he was blinded. The center of the courtyard was a star. A white, glowing figure stood in the flames. Kaelen skidded to a halt. He shielded his eyes. Seraphina? She looked like a goddess. She looked terrifying. The fire couldn't touch her. The sun seemed to bend around her. The pack was silent. On their knees. Not in submission, but in shock. High Priestess Mara was backing away. "Demon," she shrieked. "Kill it." "Archers." 3 archers on the wall raised their bows, aiming at the light. "No!" Kaelen screamed. Without thinking, he shifted. He didn't wait for the pain. He let the wolf take over. Bones cracked. Fur sprouted. In a second, a massive black wolf stood where the man had been. Huge. A shadow beast. He launched himself across the courtyard. Faster than the wind. Thwip. Thwip. The arrows flew. Kaelen leaped. He caught one arrow in his teeth. Snap. The other bounced off his thick shoulder fur. He landed in front of Seraphina. He snarled at the archers. A sound so deep it vibrated the stones. "Mine." He looked back at her. Her glow was fading slightly, just enough to see her face. She looked exhausted, but triumphant. She placed a hand on his fur. "Kaelen," she whispered. But then, the air shifted. The smell of ozone and sulfur filled the yard. Shadows stretched across the ground. Long, unnatural shadows. Kaelen's hackles rose. He turned toward the main gate. The vampire lords. They hadn't left. They had been waiting. Waiting for Seraphina to reveal herself. Waiting for the weapon to power up. The gates exploded inward. Crash. 5 figures walked in. Beautiful. Terrifying. Wearing sunglasses to block the glare, their smiles full of fangs. "Thank you for charging her up for us," the lead vampire drawled. He looked at Seraphina. "Time to come home, battery." Kaelen growled. He stepped between his mate and the monsters. The council wolves looked confused. Looking from the glowing girl to the vampires to their exiled king. "Wolves!" Kaelen roared, his voice human again as he shifted back, naked and covered in sweat. Do you see? The real enemy is at the gate. Will you fight for a lie? Or will you fight for your home? For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then, the captain of the guard, the one who had arrested him, stepped forward. He drew his sword. He stood next to Kaelen. For the pack, the captain said. One by one, the wolves drew their weapons. They turned away from Seraphina. They faced the vampires. As if fate demanded it, the three sides stood ready. The king, the hybrid queen, and the army of the night. The final war had begun.
The silence fractured. Kill them all, the vampire lord shrieked. The 5 vampires moved. They were a blur of black leather and pale skin. They didn't run, they flickered. 1 second at the gate, the next in the center of the wolf ranks. Hold the line. Kaelen roared. He shifted. Crack. Snap. The pain of the change was a welcome anchor. The black wolf burst out, massive and lethal. He lunged at the nearest leech. His jaws snapped around a vampire's arm. He bit down. Crunch. But the vampire just laughed. He smashed a fist into Kaelen's snout. It felt like being hit by a siege engine. Kaelen flew back, skidding across the cobblestones. He shook his massive head, spraying blood. These weren't normal vampires. These were lords. Ancient. Stronger than any wolf. To make things worse, the wolves were falling. He heard the yelps of his pack. He smelled the iron tang of wolf blood hitting the dirt. The vampires were dismantling them with wet, sickening ease. They are too strong, his wolf thought. We are going to lose. He looked across the chaotic sea of fighting bodies. He saw Seraphina. She was fighting too. But she wasn't using claws. She was using light. Every time a vampire got close, she blasted them with a pulse of solar energy. Hiss. They screamed and backed away, skin smoking. She was a singularity of burning white in the gloom. But she was fading. Her light flickered. Dimmed. Get the girl, a vampire shouted. Drain her. 3 of them turned toward her. They ignored the wolves. They wanted the battery. Kaelen scrambled to his paws. He had to get to her. He had to. Suddenly, agony erupted in his flank. SHNK. He howled. He spun around. It wasn't a vampire. High Priestess Mara stood there. She held a silver dagger, dripping with his blood. Her eyes were wide, manic. Die, traitor, she screamed. If I kill the Alpha, the pack will listen to me. We will purify the castle. She raised the dagger again. Aiming for his heart. Kaelen was hurt. The silver poison was already spreading, making his limbs heavy as lead. He couldn't dodge. He looked at Seraphina one last time. I'm sorry, he thought. Mara brought the blade down. But then, a white blur slammed into her. It wasn't a wolf. It was Seraphina. Seraphina saw the dagger. She saw Kaelen stumble. She didn't calculate. She didn't think about the vampires or the council. She only thought of him. Her mate. The man who had looked at her monster blood and called it a miracle. And oh, she screamed. She didn't use magic. She used mass. She threw herself between Kaelen and the priestess. Thud. She hit Mara. They both tumbled to the hard ground. The dagger was still in Mara's hand. In the scuffle, the blade slashed out. Slish. It cut deep across Seraphina's palm. A long, jagged wound. Get off me, witch. Mara spat, shoving her away. Seraphina rolled onto her back, clutching her hand. Blood, her dark, heavy, hybrid blood, welled up. It didn't drip. It sprayed into the air, caught by the wind of the battle. A fine red mist hung over the courtyard. The vampire lord saw the blood. He smelled it. Yes, he hissed. The nectar. He lunged. Preternatural speed. He grabbed Seraphina by the throat and lifted her off the ground. Finally, he groaned. Eternal power. He opened his mouth. Fangs extended. He sank them deep into the wound on her hand. He drank. Seraphina gasped. She felt her vitality rushing out. But then, the vampire lord froze. His eyes bulged. His skin turned gray. Then black. Arg, he gagged. He dropped her. He clawed at his throat. Smoke poured from his mouth. Poison, he shrieked. It burns. It's sun. It's liquid sun. He fell to his knees. He started to disintegrate. Like ash in a gale. Seraphina lay on the ground, bleeding. She watched the mist of her blood drift over the courtyard. The wolves breathed it in. The miracle happened again. Wolves who were bleeding stopped. Wolves who had the gray veins of the rot, they stood up. Eyes cleared. Strength returned instantly. It was a biological tide turning. For the vampires? Acid. They screamed as the mist touched their skin. They dissolved. For the wolves? Ambrosia. A supercharge. Seraphina smiled weakly. She looked at her hand. I am the cure, she thought. And I am the poison. Her vision blurred. She had lost too much blood. The light inside her was extinguished. The last thing she saw was the massive black wolf limping toward her, changing back into a man. Seraphina! Kaelen cried. Then, the ground rushed up to meet her.
The battle ended. The silence was heavy. The courtyard was covered in piles of ash where the vampires had been. The high priestess sat in chains, defeated, staring at the ground. But Kaelen didn't care about victory. He sat in the middle of the carnage, holding Seraphina. She was pale. Translucent. Her chest barely moved. Stay with me, he begged. He brushed the hair from her face. His hand shook. You can't leave. We just started. He looked at the cut on her hand. It wasn't healing. She had given too much. She had emptied the tank to kill the vampires and heal the pack. My king, the captain of the guard said softly, kneeling beside them. The healer is coming. It's too late, Kaelen choked out. He felt the bond fading. But then, the sun moved. It rose higher, clearing the castle walls completely. A beam of pure, unfiltered morning light hit Seraphina's face. Kaelen watched. At first, nothing happened. Then, her skin shimmered. Like diamond dust. Her chest rose. The light didn't just hit her, it sank into her. Her cells drank it like water. The color flooded back into her cheeks. The wound on her hand knitted together in seconds. Her eyelashes fluttered. She opened her eyes. They weren't just gold anymore. They were gold with a ring of bright blue. Kaelen, she whispered. Kaelen let out a sob. He pulled her against his chest, burying his face in her neck. He breathed in her scent, jasmine, rain, and now, sunshine. I'm here, he said. I'm here. He stood up, lifting her with him. The pack watched. Hundreds of wolves. They had seen her destroy the enemy. They had felt her blood cure their sickness. One by one, they knelt. The captain. The guards. The elders. Even the young pups. They bowed their heads. Not to him. To her. Long live the queen, the captain said. Long live the queen, the pack roared. Seraphina looked at them. She looked at the castle that had been her prison. Then she looked at Kaelen. We have a lot of work to do, she said softly. Kaelen smiled. No burden. No fear. Yes, he said. We do. He kissed her. Right there in front of everyone. It wasn't a tentative kiss. It was a covenant. The old world was dead. The laws of purity were ash on the wind. A new day had broken. And for the first time in history, the sun and the moon shared the same sky.